Welcome to Gorilla Sports Off Court, a post game live reaction following the Nuggets on the road, taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and not competing very well. This is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. So head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome in, everybody. Obviously, I wish I was speaking with you on a little bit more of a positive note here, but I think we can all agree as a part of Nuggets country, Broncos country, Nuggets nation, and really just watching the NBA as a whole. If you're trying to figure out which teams to sprinkle on to win the NBA Finals, which teams you've been watching as of late that have been on heaters and finding their momentum, this felt like a very disappointing game. Obviously, it was disappointing in the sense that they lost, very, very brutally lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves, 133-104 Minnesota. And we know over the last few seasons, Minnesota seems to be that team that matches up very well against this Nuggets team. They've got the size, they've got the three-point shooting, they've got that competitive drive about them that when this Nuggets team is not playing at their strengths and playing hard, it can get carried away very, very quickly. And that's what we saw in this game. Towards the beginning of this game, the Timberwolves were kind of floating in that 10-point lead area, and it felt like the Nuggets were finding ways to keep it relatively close. We saw them go into halftime down, but I didn't feel too concerned about that, given I've seen them be down at halftime quite a few times this season. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, all hope is lost. And then you see that second half of play, and you're hoping it's going to be better, right? We've seen this Nuggets team have a weaker first half, and then that third quarter seems to be where they really find their rhythm and their groove. But we talk a lot about some of the things that this Nuggets team struggles on, and it felt like in this game it was on full display. But before I get a little too much into this game, I want to talk about something that Coach Malone was asked about last home game. So yes, last game. In terms of who are the Nuggets' rival, we're going to play his clip, and then I'm going to react, and we're going to have a little bit of conversation before I am joined by Brandon Cristal to talk just a little bit about this game, and then we'll get out of here. We'll keep this short and sweet. There's really not a ton of positive things that I have to say about this game. I imagine you feel the same way, but let's play this clip from head coach Malone after the last home game that the Nuggets played, last game, talking about who the Nuggets' rival is. Let's check it out.
Not off the top of my head. I think when I think of rivalries, I go back to my father was coaching, and he was in New York, and the Knicks and the Heat, the Knicks and the Pacers. That was hate. That was rivalries. When he was in Detroit, and it was Detroit and Chicago. That was, to me, that was what a rivalry was. Here, it's so hard because the landscape of the NBA has changed. Players change so often. Teams change. The dynamics of the Western Conference change. So, yeah, you have teams in your division that, hey, Minnesota, we played them, obviously 2 years around the playoffs. Would I call that a rivalry? I don't know if I'm there yet. But, I think to your point, Ryan, the NBA is always trying to find ways to bring that about. Like in this game, in a perfect world, it's Joel Embiid versus Nikola Jokic, the two best centers in the world. And obviously it's not going to happen tonight. But that doesn't affect our preparation, how we go about things. All we're trying to do is come home and protect our home court against a team that's lost 6 in a row that's going to come out with great urgency.
Now, while I do agree with head coach Malone that the landscape of basketball has changed, and it may be hard to pinpoint one rival for this Denver Nuggets team, I will tell you the definition really quickly of a rivalry is competition for the same objective or for superiority in the same field. Since the 2022-2023 season, the Denver Nuggets record versus the Minnesota Timberwolves is 4-6. I don't know about you, Malone. I know that you are looking at rivalries as a hatred and you don't feel like the Denver Nuggets have that, but I can tell you as a Denver Nuggets fan, I hate playing the Timberwolves. I absolutely would call this a rivalry at this point in time. Even in the season The Denver Nuggets won it all and won a championship. I felt like that playoff series between the Minnesota Timberwolves was their toughest one. This Timberwolves team has size, athleticism. They shoot the three ball very, very well. And today we saw them play to the weaknesses of the Denver Nuggets. Weaknesses we haven't really seen over the last few weeks, but were exposed by the Timberwolves. So I disagree with Coach Malone here in the sense that they don't have a rivalry. I'm really starting to feel like the Timberwolves are becoming that for this Denver Nuggets, if they're not already, because of the way in which that this Timberwolves team plays when going head-to-head against the Denver Nuggets. It is very clear the Timberwolves are very motivated and very hungry to take down the Denver Nuggets. I think they, like all of us know, the Denver Nuggets are exceptionally talented, but the Timberwolves find a way very often to expose the weaknesses of the Nuggets. It doesn't matter how hot they've been. Over their last 15 games, the Nuggets have looked exceptional. We've been very excited about the direction that they're heading. But today, it felt like all of the things we were excited about, we were feeling optimistic about, started to crumble. They started to fall apart. And there's a few things I want to get into about what really stood out to me, something that BK and I talk about, and he will be joining me shortly. Speaking of, I actually need to go ahead and send him the link so he can hop on whenever he's ready. But I will tell you, there's something about this Timberwolves team, playing this Timberwolves team that just is really feeling like a rivalry at this point. They have just figured out ways to cut the momentum of the Denver Nuggets, because that's what we've been seeing from them lately is their momentum. One of the biggest things that I was from the beginning of the game, I knew this was not going to be a game that we were looking like we were going to win because of the turnovers. It is very hard to win a game when you lose the turnover battle. Just between Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook, a duo that going into this game had the highest plus minus out of any duo in the NBA right now. They're playing at a very high level, and they're playing very efficient basketball when playing together on the court. Between the two of them, they had 13 turnovers. 11 turnovers. Between Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook today versus the Timberwolves, they had a total of 11 turnovers. The Timberwolves as a team only had 16. You're not going to win a game when your best duo, who is facilitating and running the offense, is turning the ball over that much. So that right there made me feel very uncomfortable. And I was like, oh my gosh, this Timberwolves team, we know how they play the Denver Nuggets. And when you allow, And we also know when you turn over the ball, they're going to find a way to take advantage of that turnover and score points. Not only did our defense look atrocious to me, and we've seen a lot of forward progress in our defense as of late, their defense was really sloppy. Their offense was really sloppy. The Nuggets just could not figure it out today. And this seems to be a trend when facing the Timberwolves. So while Coach Malone believes the landscape of the game has changed, and I do agree with that part, I do think there was a lot of problems in this game for the Nuggets. And it seems to be a trend when they face the Timberwolves. So the Timberwolves, while they may have had a struggling season, this Nuggets team, I don't care how much the Timberwolves are struggling, if they find a way to sneak into the playoffs and they have to face the Denver Nuggets, I do worry about that. I do worry about what that would look like for the Nuggets, given how well the Timberwolves play when they play against them. Let's talk to a little bit of the chat here while we wait on BK to join us in just a bit. 11 turnovers between Jokic and Russ, not okay. The Timberwolves as a team had 16. You're not going to win a game when you lose a turnover battle that badly. And especially when the two players that have been your offense and have been facilitating your offense and have been very dominant together, and have elevated the team as a whole when they're on the floor together, have that many turnovers, just the two of them, it's going to be really tough to win those games. MPJ had probably the worst game of the year. Yeah, not a great game for him. And we can go through and read some stat lines. I'm sure most of you watched the game, so you have an understanding of, again, there's not a ton that you walk away from this game and feel good about. I will tell you, Jamal Murray, who we saw really pick up his steam a little bit. He was finding some rhythm offensively. Then he kind of had a couple games in there where it was like, okay, where did you go? 25 tonight, 3 of 5 from 3. We saw him in that Timberwolves game in last year's series against the Timberwolves, we saw him kind of become villainized after throwing the heat pack or the towel on the floor. And then he went to Minnesota and played very, very well. So Jamal Murray is actually one of those guys that not only plays well against the Lakers, but also plays well on the road against the Timberwolves for the most part. So wasn't surprised to see him with 25, only 20 for Nikola Jokic. Where I was the most disappointed with Nikola Jokic today was his rebounding. This is a guy that can get a triple-double with his eyes shut, but we also know that he does struggle playing defense. I will say Nikola Jokic is not as bad of a defender as people like to make it seem he is. To the eye test, he fails every time. But when you look at numbers, when you look at his deflections, when you look at his steals, when you look at his rebounding, typically, he is a pretty... I'm not going to say he's a great defender, but he's not as bad as people want to make him seem. Today, he was just getting eaten alive. 23 and 11 for him. So he was still facilitating the ball, which we know there is not a player in the NBA that gets their hands on the ball more than Nikola Jokic. So you expect him to have those numbers when it comes to facilitating. This Nuggets team is also the best passing team in the NBA. They're number 1 in assists. So not surprised to see him at 11, but very surprised to see him at 3 rebounds. He was getting eaten alive in this game. I don't really typically worry about Rudy Gobert. I do not like watching Rudy Gobert. He just drives me insane. I'm not a Rudy Gobert fan. I probably never will be. He did have 14 boards in this game. So Nikola Jokic was getting out-rebounded a lot. And if you couple that with the turnovers that he had, I think he had 7 on his own. It was just a very sloppy game by Nikola Jokic. Very, very sloppy. And we know how important he is to this Nuggets team. So when he's not showing up and he's playing sloppy basketball, it kind of feels like a ripple effect that just never ends. And for 4 quarters, that's what it felt like we were watching, was just exceptionally sloppy basketball. Everything we've been excited about over the last few weeks felt like it just all came crumbling down today watching this game. Someone said, chill, my good sis Liv. He is a bad defender. I don't agree with that. I do not agree with the narrative that Nikola Jokic is a bad defender. Do I think he's a great one? I don't. But when I look at numbers, I'm not willing to call him a bad defender. Today, he absolutely looked like one. So again, the eye test against the Timberwolves, he's kind of making me look like an idiot when I say that he's not a bad defender, but I just don't believe that he is as bad as the public likes to make him seem. However, 3 rebounds for him, 14 for Rudy Gobert. You also have 7 turnovers from Nikola Jokic. This was just not a good game for him at all. I do have my friend, Brandon Crystal, that is joining us. BK, he's going to hop in here, and I'm sure he's got lots to talk about with us because, again, there wasn't much about that game that I really, really liked. So let's go ahead and bring BK in. BK, oh my God. That was not the game we wanted to see. And I at the top of the show, I played a clip from Coach Malone the other night. You were at that game. You actually got that post-game presser footage for us when he was asked about a rivalry. He's like, I don't really think we have one. The landscape of the game is changing. While I do agree with that, it is starting to feel like the Nuggets have a rivalry with the Timberwolves because the Timberwolves have just figured out how to beat this Nuggets team. It doesn't matter how bad they're struggling in the season. It doesn't matter how hot the Nuggets are at the time. They just play against the Nuggets very, very well. What are some of your biggest takeaways besides the turnovers, the sloppy offense, the sloppy defense, the no rebounds by Jokic? What else did you see in this game that you're hoping we don't see in the next 4 road games by the Nuggets?
Yeah, I think it was all of that. And you're sloppy on both sides. It really got away from them in the second quarter. I understand that they were down after 1 and they were down 9, but as they were trying to cut into it and it's 49-45, they're getting within 4, within 5, and then all of a sudden it's 54-45, and they just couldn't, and it was a steal, but then a turnover right away from Russ, and missed layup from MPJ, and just little things that they've done so well so many times. And when you look at this team specifically in Minnesota, I know they're without Dante DiVincenzo right now. They make the trade for Karl Anthony Towns. It feels like a salary dump more than anything, but it's still, they bring in Julius Randle, who's been an all-star and is definitely a different player than Cat. It's what we know about this team, though, is they're built to beat the Nuggets. And that's exactly what Tim Connelly, who built the Nuggets essentially, went out and that's why he traded for Rudy Gobert. And we'll see if they do play in a playoff series. I heard you mention that. I don't think they can defend them the same unless you're going to start Naz Reid, because the reason that it worked so well last year late in that series was that Cat actually bodied up Joker, we'll put that in quotes, and that allowed Rudy to kind of play free safety. And so you didn't really have that today. But I guess you said everything that we've seen out of the last, 12 wins in 15 games feels like it all just went away. We have to remember that it is just one game. Now, if they go 1-4 on this road trip,
that was so brutal, BK. Oh, my Lanta.
well, but and I was watching most of the game and I was listening to a little bit of it, and our pals on Altitude Radio, Kaz and Scott Hastings were doing the game since there was no local TV with it being a national game on ABC. And at 97-80, when the Nuggets are out of it and you've got the weird foul call where the ball was hit first, so it doesn't matter what happens after that. Scott was like, let's take this call out of it, other than he was mad at. He's like, they're not winning this game today. And that was at 97-80 in the third quarter. You could just get that sense it wasn't their day. If they go lay an egg Monday night in Chicago, and the one thing about this road trip too, because we know Chicago's a city you can have fun and maybe a little less on a Sunday, but I've had plenty of fun in Chicago on a Sunday night. It's going to be cold, just like it's been in Minnesota. They should just watch football and stay in the hotel and then take on the Bulls that we know has some talent, but isn't as good as where the Timberwolves are, even though their record may not indicate. But the Timberwolves get up for the Nuggets. That's why the Nuggets have lost to them now twice there in Minnesota. We know about the series last year.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose sleep unless they go 1-4 on this road trip. Okay. If they go,
that's fair.
Because they may not see him they're going to obviously see him again when they come into town, but they may not see him in the playoffs because Minnesota may not be there. And so, look, it was sloppy on both sides of the ball. Joker only has 3 boards. And, you heard
he had more turnovers than rebounds, which is just not like him at all.
Yeah, you think about that pass he throws in the corner to Peyton Watson that just goes through.
Oh, my gosh.
Right, it's or on the wing or whatever it is. It's I think it was Peyton Watson. But you get that from Joker, and you're like, okay, this just isn't their day across the board. And I think that's okay. This is the NBA, right? The Celtics are struggling right now. Does anyone think that they're not winning the East or going to be in contention and going to be there? And so when they threw up finals odds, I think maybe at halftime, and it showed the Mavs and the Celtics, and the Mavs have the third lowest odds without even looking. And I'm sure you can look at your FanDuel Sportsbook app. I bet the Nuggets have to be second behind OKC, right? If we just
I'm actually looking at it right now. It's the Celtics at plus 220, OKC at plus 230, Cavs plus 750, the Nuggets plus 1,300 right below the Cavs. So there's a pretty big jump from first to fourth right now. And I'm actually curious to know if the odds change after the games today. Yeah, they might.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking now too because I'm curious. So I'm looking on my phone rather than on my computer and looking at you. But it's we talk about it a lot. And I'm sure plenty of people that are hanging out with us in the chat have heard us say this. There's only a handful of teams that can win the finals. The T-Wolves aren't one of those teams, it doesn't feel like. Now, Anthony Edwards can carry them on his back. So if this gets turned around, then maybe we're talking about the T-Wolves differently. Let's see how they are after the break. But what we've seen so far, and it could just be feeling each other out, trying to understand how Julius Randle mixes in with this team. I'm just saying it's easy to freak out about this game. It's one game out of 82. And had they not played so well in recent weeks, then you'd be like, oh, here we go. And it'd be the same conversations we were having in November more than October and early December. We're like, what's going on here? How are they losing to the Wizards without 8 players and Jordan Poole's going nuts? It's not that. I mean, Anthony Edwards, slow start, then turn into Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert is still really good on defense. We know what Naz Reid is off the bench. Mike Conley Jr. is out there healthy. Jaden McDaniels is not going to have to. Michael Malone always loves cleaning stuff up after wins. He's not going to mind tomorrow's film study before they start watching football where he lights them up. I thought he would have at halftime. I thought at halftime he was going to.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, third quarter, like, should I get into my sports book right now and do a little sprinkle on them covering the spread here? Because we know when they have these first halves that are slow, the defense is looking sloppy, there's a lot of turnovers. We typically see them come out of halftime with a little bit of motivation and a little bit more urgency, and did not feel like we had that today. Now, is there a world where they were playing a little tired and they have had a very long month of January compared to other teams? Yes, sure. But it's just, I think you expect them to have a little bit more urgency and competitiveness against a team like the Timberwolves that has had their number for some time now. You would just expect them to have that bad taste in their mouth and be really ready to go. And it just felt like they were just unprepared. Felt like they were unprepared.
And, you talked about, or we looked at those odds, or I mentioned it. So I'm looking at the on your favorite app, FanDuel Sportsbook. The odds right now just to win it, not even to get there, but to win it. Celtics, your favorites at plus 220. So what is that? 2.2 to 1, essentially. You put down 100, you win $220. Thunder right behind them, plus 230. Cavs are ahead of the Nuggets, which may surprise some folks.
Plus 750, right?
Really proven it. Yeah, they're 750. And then your Nuggets and Knicks are tied, and we're going to see those teams square off here in a couple days. But at plus 1,300, if you've got an extra 10 grand lying around, why don't you go throw that down? You'd win $130,000. Now, maybe that's too much, but I know, Liv, you might put 100 grand down right now.
I sprinkled
1.3 million.
I sprinkled on them actually before their last game when they were plus 1,600.
See?
So I got it
because
a little
they've been playing so
better.
well. Maybe it drops down. I think the folks in Vegas understand the Nuggets are playing better basketball. And so I haven't been following the chat as closely as you have. And so DJ Seahawks says, how does this affect the vibe? Again, talk to me in 3 games. Just like they ease into the season sometimes, and we get on Jamal for that, maybe they're easing into this road trip.
It's fair. Yeah, there's a world where that is the case. I just don't prefer it.
Yes, you'd rather. Well, yeah, you'd rather than just.
I mean, of course. But you know what? Again, I think this game was. I think the losses that I struggle with, that I kind of just don't have as much grace with, that I maybe should. You do understand this is a long season. They have had a very exhausting month of January, but where I just don't have any patience or grace, which, by the way, everybody, I don't really have much patience in my life anyway. So I certainly don't make an exception for my favorite sports teams. Just know that. My family, my friends, everyone will tell you, my coworkers will tell you, I'm not the most patient person on the planet. So that is just who I am. But the reason I don't have a ton of patience in these situations, because it is just, one game out of a 5-game road trip. I understand it is one game, and I understand it doesn't cancel the greatness we've seen in those 12 wins in their last 15. It doesn't just get rid of that. I'm not now panicking and feeling like they have no shot at winning it all and they can't come out of the Western Conference. I don't think that right now. But I think what is frustrating is a loss to the Timberwolves would have been okay if we just got, if we were playing tough and just got slightly outplayed, but this was just a display of being unprepared. There wasn't urgency. And the thing that I struggle with is the Nuggets have been in this groove and in this rhythm of creating good habits, which I think will bode very well for them following the All-Star break, when you have all these other teams that are like, all right, it's time to lock in. It's the All-Star break's over. Let's put our foot on the gas. While every team is doing that, you have to also remember every team's going to get a little bit better following the All-Star break. And so what I want to see with this Nuggets team is them continuing to build those good habits so that when every other team is getting better after the All-Star break, the Nuggets are prepared, they know who they are, and they know they can continue to win. And I still believe that they're in that position, but it's hard when you watch them creating such good habits. And then you see them take so many steps backwards. This wasn't just a bad 3-point shooting day. This wasn't just, hey, we had too many turnovers. It wasn't just, hey, our defensive effort could have been better. It was all of the above. And so that's where it's like, you know what they say? They're like, pick a struggle. To not be shooting well, to not be rebounding well, to be turning over the ball a lot, and then to not have any defensive hustle. That's the whole game. That's 4 quarters of just bad basketball. And so I can make it, not excuses, but I can have a little more patience when I feel like something was just missing and you can, kind of pinpoint what the issue was. The whole game was an issue for this Denver Nuggets team today. And again, that's going to happen. These are not perfect players. They're going to lose games. I understand that. But against the Timberwolves, it just felt like, really? Like, we're here again. This team who's been struggling so much this season meets the Denver Nuggets when they're at their hottest form, and they can turn the Nuggets from one of the teams that's on one of the biggest heaters into that. It does make you think, okay, how prepared is this Nuggets team going to be to face a team like that in a 7-game series? There's still time for them to continue to develop those good habits. And so not all hope is lost, but again, I'd have a little more patience if I could pinpoint 1 or 2 issues. The issues were the Nuggets. That was the issue. They just did not play offensively well, defensively well. They just looked unprepared. And again, we may now see them in a couple of days firing off on all cylinders and right back in their peak form. And I'm really hoping that's the case. But again, it's hard to think that way when you just watch them take so many steps backwards. So it's just frustrating, as a fan and as an analyst when we've had so many positive things to say. But I also think, it's worth giving credit in the other direction and saying the Timberwolves, despite their record and their shaky season, still have a lot of talent on this roster. They have a defensive player of the year. They've got Anthony Edwards, Naj Reid, him. I mean, you let him get hot from the 3-point line. He could look like Steph Curry playing the Denver Nuggets. So again, it doesn't go without saying that the Timberwolves are very, very talented despite their interesting record. They may end up being a Cincinnati Bengals team of the NBA where they've got the talent, they're playing at a high level. It's just not the record at the end of the season doesn't reflect how good they actually are. So maybe the Nuggets just went into this game not with their guard down a little bit, which, or to your point, maybe they're pacing themselves for this road game, but I wish they would have chose a different team to pace themselves against. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, and I'm seeing comments in the chat about they need to beat a good team, and Joker needs to stop worrying about his stats. We'll address both separately. The one thing we know Joker doesn't worry about is his stats. He does not, at the end of the game, he looks at the box score just to kind of see what he did. In the game, he's not thinking, oh, I've got 8 assists, let me get to 2 more, or I've got 9 rebounds, let me get my 9th or 10th rebound, or let me get 20 points, or I'm averaging 30, let me make sure I get there. He does not see basketball like that at all. It's what is the easiest way to score on a given possession every time down. And the criticism of his defense, we know he doesn't play defense the way Rudy Gobert does. He's just not built like that, but he's not accidentally 4th in the league in steals. And I know he had a steal early that I saw in the first quarter. I don't know if he picked up any more. Yeah, he ended up with they didn't give him credit, but he hit the ball away. And so it's his defense isn't the issue at all today.
Right.
It's overall we can chalk up a number of things that were obviously problematic. And we've talked about their free throws. Well, they've been getting to the line, including today, 32 times, but they made 11. Okay, that is well below even Friday. What day is today? Today's Saturday. Even Thursday's game where they missed 10. Well, today they missed 21.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're not going to miss 21 most games. And then from 3,
you sure hope not, right? My God.
I'm sorry, I'm reading these numbers wrong. I'm off by a whole category. All right,
that's all right.
ESPN's. Okay, they were 11 of 32 from 3, and then that goes back to the point. 7 of 13 from the line, so that number is still not good. That percentage is right, okay, but it was 13 times. So a team that's getting to the line second most in the league, and you heard on the TV broadcast them talking about them dominating the paint and shooting so many free throws. When you're only getting 13 free throws and some are coming late in a blowout, it means you're not imposing your will on them, and that is a credit, like you said, to their defense. But they'll have a chance to play the Knicks in the Garden, the Mecca of basketball.
Woo!
We know on a Wednesday night. I know it might be cold there in the Big Apple, but we'll see Spike Lee and Ben Stiller and some other celebs. Maybe Sydney Sweeney, who was at the game in Brooklyn the other day. Maybe she's at the game in New York. Who knows? But you'll see some A-listers that want to see Joker and the Nuggets come to town. And not to mention in all these big cities, like in Chicago, it's going to feel like a home game in parts because Chicago has the biggest Serbian population, I think, outside of Serbia. Yeah. And so we will see Serbian flags on Monday night. It's going to feel like a home game for Joker to some degree. And then in New York, you'll see it as well with plenty of Serbian fans. And so I think that, again, you chalk it up as a bad day across the board. You were obviously not good on the glass when you only, is that right? Those rebound numbers, they're off by 1, but you still get out rebound. Everything I'm looking at is off by 1. But you get out rebounded by almost 10. It's just not a good day. And Michael Malone, I'm sure, laid into him at halftime. Post game, he probably didn't as much as he will tomorrow in their meeting, and he'll point out all the things they did badly.
Right.
If they lay an egg Monday against a bad Bulls team or a team that's not that good, they're 10th in the East, they're 19-26. Then you're more concerned. If they lose a close game to the Knicks, you're not going to freak out. Let's see how that game is played on Wednesday night. Then you play against we see what the Sixers are, and they aren't an undermanned Sixers team. Do we know if there's any light at the end of the tunnel for Embiid? It'd be great to see him play. I'm sure for Sixers fans. I don't even know the last time he played. And then they finish up in Charlotte, where we know that LaMelo Ball can certainly go nuts, but they're not a good basketball team.
Right.
So if they go 1-4 on this road trip or 0-5, freak out. Or if their wins are only against Philly or Chicago and Charlotte, I'd be a little worried. Either way, if they lose to Sixers without Embiid even at home, I'd be worried. But you can't hit the panic button because of how well they've played of late. They didn't just forget how to play basketball. They just had a crappy day.
Yeah, I mean, they just looked like, to be honest, it just looked like they were being bullied a little bit out there. And that happens from time to time. And if you're not, one, prepared, but two, again, just prepared. It felt like the Nuggets today.
Not one prepared or two prepared.
Oh,
but you're right.
If you're not one prepared or two prepared.
It felt like they let the game get away from them because they're in it in the second quarter, right? It's a 4.5-point game. And then all of a sudden it's an 8-point game. Then it's a 10-point. Then it's back down to that. Then it's a 12-point game. Then all of a sudden you get into the second half and it's 15, it's 17, it's 19, it's 20, and so you're just having to work that hard. And I give Michael Malone credit because, sort of to Scott Hastings' point, where he said that we're not winning this game, we're watching the end of that game and it's the 400, it's the 436 mark. And it was a couple of minutes or seconds before that, but under 5 minutes. The game wasn't completely out of hand, but Michael Malone on the other side has been the guy that's left people in and say, "Oh, I've seen this before. I've seen too many things in the league," right? He went the other way. He's like, "This is not our night." So it's Hunter Tyson in there and PJ Hall against the Timberwolves starters until they took him out of the next time out. And so I give Michael Malone credit at that point for saying this just isn't our night. We're raising the white flag. It's been a terrible effort from our starters, and we're going to get out of here, not get anybody stupidly hurt, and then we're going to focus on the rest of this road trip.
Absolutely. Happy birthday to Over the Ropes Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for tuning in and hanging out with BK and myself. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. Aquariuses. I'm also an Aquarius. I'm actually a cusp.
Yeah, you are.
I'm on the day that it changes from Capricorn to Aquarius, which means I'm maybe a little bit of both. Which I think, honestly, when I talk to people and they know me very well, they're like, yeah, I could totally see both. So I think it just depends on the day for me. But nonetheless, happy birthday. Aquarius is rock. I am one. So, of course, I'm going to say that. BK, what are you?
I am an Aries. March 31st.
To be honest, I don't know anything about star signs except for my own because people have told me and I've looked into it a couple times. But what are Aries known for?
Super smart, super confident. They piss people off sometimes. I don't know. Let's see. Aries traits. Let's see what the internet says real quick.
What is your
well, it sounds right, though. Energetic, impulsive, and confident. Natural leaders and motivators.
That's you for sure. I would agree with that. Yeah.
Adventurous, positive, honest. Impulsive.
This show is all about honesty, so it makes sense. Our Aquarius is also honest because sometimes I feel like I may be too honest. That might be part of my problem. Actually.
Maybe so. I don't know. I haven't looked, but it's Aries are the first sign of the zodiac that's ruled by the planet Mars, for what that's worth.
Oh, okay. I love that.
But let's see what it says. Aquarius traits are.
Yeah, let's see.
Aquarius traits female. No, we'll just go. We're not going gender specific. Independent, creative, humanitarian.
See, the humanitarian thing, I do feel that, yes, but I'm not like active about it. So I need to be better about that. But definitely.
But you like the idea of helping people. You're just not doing much of it, but you think you should. And I guess that's better than being like, no, that's wrong. I don't want to help anybody. It says that you're intellectual, rebellious, free-spirited, social.
I'm not rebellious. I'm very social.
And unpredictable.
I don't know. I think you pretty much know what you get with me most days, Yeah.
But
anyway, I am independent. I am very independent. I am very social. They didn't say stubborn in there, so maybe I'm not as stubborn as I think I am.
No, maybe that's the other. What'd you say? Capricorn?
Capricorn, yeah.
What's the Capricorn traits are? Hardworking, ambitious, disciplined.
There you go. That sounds like me. Loyal,
sensitive, vision, unforgiving, and you dwell on the bad. Capricorns dwell on the bad. So I don't know.
That actually sounds a lot like me. So yes, I think I'm a little bit of both. That would make a whole lot of sense. Okay, BK. Before we have
breaking Broncos news that it kind of broke yesterday unofficially from Josine Anderson, but the Broncos are losing their assistant general manager Darren Muji
to the Jets, right?
He's headed to the Jets with Aaron Glenn, and Muji is a really, really good football mind, really good dude. I've gotten to know him in his time here in Denver when he was a scout. And then the last couple of years, he's been on George Payton's staff as one of his right hand men, if you will. I mean, Kelly, who works in his office, is a right hand woman. So for all you Broncos fans out there, Darren Muji was going to go to the Patriots a couple of years ago, got promoted here. Then they wanted to hire him with the Raiders, got promoted again. And now he gets a chance to run the show there with Aaron Glenn in New York. And there's another word you could put before the show that is the type of show that the Jets have been. Although when they seem more competent than the Cowboys, that gives you an idea of where things are with my hometown Cowboys. But I'm happy for Mooj. And that means he'll stop asking me for concert tickets.
Love it. Okay, well, this comment here, I just want to address this, and then BK, you and I will discuss very briefly what we want to see. Actually, I don't even think we're going to. I was going to say, what do you want to see better for next game? I think we know everything needs to be better next game, but I want to address this comment really quick. Malone needs to develop his bench with playing time. You can't do that in close games. We are not in that position yet. There is no... Unless we are convincingly winning, we're in a comfortable lead. And even that is never safe. We know how this Nuggets team is, BK. The amount of times you and I are texting during games and 1 second they're up by 20 and then we're texting going, well, that got out of hand pretty quickly. I mean, we know that with this Nuggets team, there really is no such thing as a comfortable lead. And that makes it very difficult to develop our bench guys and give them real valuable minutes on the floor. Because when we see Jokic not on the floor, or Russell Westbrook and Jokic as a duo not on the floor, there's a significant change in how the offense is not only being run, but how it's producing and how efficient it is. So I just don't think that we're in a position yet where we can allow our bench to play valuable minutes because we don't really win games super comfortably often. We've seen it a couple of times, and that's when you get a Jalen Pickett in there who has some really great moments. And I'd love to see more minutes from a guy like Hunter Tyson. I think there's some defensive upside there, but we're just not in a position yet where we can do that because we're not winning comfortably enough yet. Would you agree with that, BK?
Yeah, and you are going to need those guys potentially based on injuries, but with them healthy now, I'll put healthy in quotes. I guess a couple more things I want to address from the chat, though. Somebody said MPJ staying in the starting lineup to trade him. If there's a piece that makes sense, like we talked about Brandon Ingram, that's a trade you make. You're not trading MPJ for Zach LaVine. Offense isn't the problem. And if you're trading MPJ somehow to get Bruce Brown in the mix, that still makes you smaller. And I'm not saying you don't want Bruce Brown, but what else are you going to do to replace that size? But I think MPJ just, you know who he is. We know, I think you said that earlier. We know who he is, we know who he isn't. He's going to give you a lot of effort a lot of nights. Some nights he's just not going to have it. Some nights the shots are just going to go down like it's nothing. And some nights it's going to look like a struggle. He's done better at getting to the rack and shooting in the mid-range this year at times early in the year. They're keeping him in the starting lineup because I think they like the way the starting lineup is functioning and like AG and a mix of DeAndre Jordan like you're going to need against a team like this. So I'm not saying that MPJ won't be traded, and we've got just now a couple weeks, but they're not keeping him in there to keep his trade value up. Anybody that knows basketball knows what MPJ is and isn't. They put him on the bench and like, oh, now he's not going to be worth as much in a trade. His contract isn't that favorable right now. It will be, I think, in a year whenever he gets to that final year of the deal for a team to have more flexibility with what they want to do in the long term or, rent a player kind of thing. I think it's up and down, kind of like it is with Christian Brown. I get that it's a 7 or 8 year vet versus a 3-year vet, but CB's trending up right now. And MPJ is such a fascinating case study because he was going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and his body has failed him to some degree. He was the best high school player in the country, a natural scorer, great shooter, and it hasn't materialized consistently in the league. But I don't think that's why he's in there. And then people that were going back to the stat, because I wanted to just share this with you. I'm sure you saw this. I think I retweeted it maybe from the league or the Nuggets, but about Joker and him being more concerned about stats. They are, because he didn't get a triple-double today, 119 and 31 in the 152 games that he's had a triple-double. So that means those aren't empty stats. That means whatever that percentage is, but if that's 120 out of 150, that's a really good percentage, right? What's 12 out of 15? That's something super high. That's 80 something percent, 83 to 85%. And people that are better at math can figure that out. So he's not just putting up numbers to put up numbers. It isn't like when Russell, the second year in a row, I think the Thunder were right around 500 the year after he won the MVP and he averaged another triple double. I'm not picking on Russ. I'm saying, actually, they gave us that number the other night, and that was before all those triple doubles that have now added to it. He had won 79% of the games, and Russ had won 74% of the games when they averaged triple double. So it's not 61% or 53%. Those numbers are leading to wins. They are contributing to wins. And so that's a silly narrative that he's worried about his stats, or that the stats don't mean as much. Sort of like our friend Alex Rodriguez, who's sort of involved with the Timberwolves, would think to maybe one day be an owner, who hit all those home runs in games that didn't matter. I'm not saying A-Rod didn't have big hits in his career, and he was an MVP, but he was accused that nobody hit more home runs down 8-3 solo shots than A-Rod.
Yeah. Do you feel like Aaron Gordon maybe rushed back from his injury a little too quickly?
No, it's a calf injury, and I think that the problem is he's just trying to manage it.
Yeah.
And so he can play, and we're not seeing issues with his movement. Now, I don't know what his pain threshold is and what the calf is doing game to game, but they sat him like he's played what now, 6 or 7 of the last 8 games minus the game against Houston. And so that was the second night of a back-to-back, and we haven't had any back-to-backs since then. I think there's one at the end of this road trip, maybe, right? Is it Friday, Saturday next week? Because nobody plays. Well, I guess it's not Super Bowl Sunday, but either way, I think that, and I've got dogs that are trying to weigh in here on Stella saying, "Hi, do you live?" Lives.
Hi, baby.
I think they want to go out. They're disgusted with the Nuggets' performance too, and want to go outside.
Disgusted.
No. Okay, girl. But I don't think they've rushed him back. I think it's him just trying to understand what his body can and can't do. So he's going to stay on the minutes restriction until it feels like he is weeks clear of any potential tightness. And calf injuries linger. Calves and hamstrings, they linger, and so quads too. And so they wouldn't play him if he wasn't cleared. They don't need. I'm not saying they don't need him, but they're not trying to rush a guy who we think he's 30, right? Or right there, he's got to be close to 30. They're not rushing him back.
Yeah.
Just to play him, just because they're not that undermanned. They're not undermanned at all. And so I think that, he is going to be 30 sometime soon. He was born in 1995. He'll be 30 in September. So he's 29.
I want to really quickly, before we get out of here, talk about this, because I also noticed this in last year's playoff series where we did not play Peyton Watson very much, which I found very interesting because in the regular season, Peyton Watson caused a lot of problems for the Timberwolves defensively. He was able to, in my opinion, get probably the most defensive stops out of any of our players. He was very crucial for the Nuggets in the regular season against the Timberwolves. And then he didn't get played very much in the playoff series against the Timberwolves. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and we're seeing it again. I'm not sure what the situation is with Malone not putting in a guy like Peyton Watson more often, who has that defensive hustle and competitiveness and can make those big defensive stops.
Yeah, big block from Julius Randle today.
It doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. I don't know if you have an answer for that, BK, but I think it's one of those, like, maybe the only thing I can think of is maybe there's something we don't know on the back end as to why he's not playing as much. But specifically against the Timberwolves, I have noticed this pattern where Peyton Watson causes the most disruptions for the Timberwolves defensively, and then we don't play him nearly enough when we face the Timberwolves. So I don't get it, BK. I don't know if you have any predictions or thoughts, but that one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all.
I feel like Peyton Watson, probably of all the players, confuses Michael Malone the most, if that makes sense, because he sees the talent. And, we talk about really good high school players. He was one of the best high school players in the country, didn't play hardly at all then as a freshman at UCLA. And you thought he'd take a bigger jump last year with just more opportunity, which was obviously there between the normal injuries of the season and Jeff Green and Bruce Brown moving on. And he wasn't really able to take that step. And oftentimes you'll hear in sports, and it's not always true, but that a player takes their biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. And again, it's just not always true. But then, okay, year 1 to year 2 didn't go great. Does year 2 to year 3, is that the year where he really becomes an elite player and kind of lives up to whatever hype you want to call that, from high school All-American to now? And I think that his just maybe inconsistency at times, and it probably is worth asking about is he always into the game, both offensively and defensively? Because when you're such a good athlete, you can mask a lot of things. And I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm more just curious, is that Malone sometimes can't trust him because there's an inconsistency there. And so it's like at times he looks like the way he was built, and at other times, like, has this kid played basketball much in his life? Because
yeah, but for God's sakes, our whole starting lineup is inconsistent.
no question, Michael
So
Porter
if
Jr.
that's
is
your,
kind of
if
king of
that's, I'm playing devil's. If that's his reason for not playing Peyton Watson more is because of inconsistencies, I would argue there's probably a few guys that should have hit the bench a lot quicker today. To be honest with you, Peyton Watson he was the only Denver Nugget with blocks in this game. He had 3 blocks, 1 steal, and he only played 18 minutes of basketball. Again, this is not the first time we've seen Peyton Watson perform well and cause disruptions for the Timberwolves defensively. And yet we still don't see an increase in his minutes when he's playing a team that he matches up very well against. The one thing, in my opinion, besides actually there's a lot of things, but one of the things that the Timberwolves have an advantage over the Nuggets is size, athleticism. They're big, they're strong, they can shoot the 3-pointer. And Peyton Watson, to me, is the guy on the Nuggets that just looking at him and knowing how he plays, that's the guy you want playing the most minutes in this game. So it doesn't make sense. And I can imagine if it's a mind frick for me, it might be a mind frick for Peyton Watson, which I hate because, I think he plays the best when he's confident. And it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to him either why, hey, I probably play the best defensively against this team. Why am I only playing 18 minutes? Again, it's not for me to understand. It's not for me to question. I am not the coach of this team, but I have definitely noticed a pattern. Not yet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Could you be the first female NBA head coach and leapfrog Becky Hammond? Maybe.
It's possible.
I'm not gonna say you won't be.
This comment says, "Is P-Watt the new MPJ doghouse just because?" ?
The one thing I'll say, Marcel, is that nothing happens just because. If that makes sense. There's always some sort of reasoning behind why a good coach does something. Shitty coaches will do dumb things all the time, or they'll try stuff.
Some coaches can be petty, though.
No question. But Michael Malone doesn't.
I'm not saying he
Michael
is,
Malone seems like he can be stubborn, and if you're aggravating him, he can hold that against you. But he's not going to do it just because.
Petty.
Right. But no. I'm saying if you can help his team win, that matters more to Michael Malone than I'm going to teach this kid a lesson. He's not wired.
Yeah, but Peyton Watson could help them win.
Sure, but I'm saying that I think that he has. I think he has his reasoning. Is that I don't think it's just a personality thing. Is my point that there's a reason why. And I'm going to do a little digging, and when we chat again Monday, then I'll hopefully have a little more insight. So everybody that's on here, make sure you're watching. We're going to do a little off court as well as a little post game in Chicago Monday. Does that sound right? Give or take. And so we'll hopefully, unless, I hear something, because I did ask a few people, if I hear something back sooner, but that also doesn't make sense. If no one's playing defense and you're down 17, you're down 21, Peyton Watson isn't going to shoot you back into the game. You might as well play Julian Strawther and Hunter Tyson, or Hunter Tyson even ahead of Peyton Watson, because
right.
And so I think that probably does factor into. So I think is it Dejan Lekic, who was happy to see my Fulham hat, and I don't get his name wrong. Dejan, like Joker, Nikola Jokic, Dejan. I think that there's something to that. If it's a close game and you need his defense and it's an 8-point game, then we're right, or then he's right. In a blowout, Peyton Watson isn't going to shoot you back in. See, Dejan, I got it. Like jogging, soft J.
Love it. Okay, well.
That's from a movie called Anchorman that you should watch tonight.
Anchorman? I've already seen that movie.
You have seen it? Yeah,
I have seen it. It's one of the funniest. It's one of the funniest movies out there.
And Ron Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy. Yeah.
You're gonna go jogging, or I think it's yogging. It's a soft J. And so the young. That's
I love that movie. When I was studying journalism in college, that was one that, of course, you don't want to learn journalism through that movie.
I mean, the non-regional diction, like I'm from Dallas, but you wouldn't know it just talking to me.
Right. It was funny.
And some of the yokels you went to college with sound like,
yeah.
idiots.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah. Don't always read the teleprompter kind of thing.
Of course.
What
Well,
time will off court be? Good question.
yeah, I'm not sure. We'll keep you guys posted. You guys can look for our Twitter accounts, letting you guys know what our schedules are for next week. Of course, we'll keep you covered on content as the Nuggets are on the road. Even when they're on the road, we'll keep you covered on all things post-game live shows, as well as our regularly scheduled off-court shows throughout the week. I'm Liv Moods. That's BK. This is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Head to trustedamerican.com to see if they can get you a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments, or scan the QR code that just popped up above BK's head. If you're watching and you want some convenience, we've got it right there for you. Scan that. See how they can save you some money. This has been another post-game live reaction show following a pretty bad loss for the Denver Nuggets, but they do have 4 more games on the road. They have a chance to bounce back and show us some of those really great flashes that we've seen from them. They were on a heater in their last 15. They had won 12. They've been really working in a really great and positive direction, so hopefully we can get back to that. But we've got time. We've got some time for them to keep working out the kinks. We just want to keep seeing them progress. So I'm Liv Moods. That's BK, and we will see you guys very, very soon. Go Nuggets, no matter the score. Go Nuggets. But hoping. Yeah, she's happy we're ending the show because she's done talking about how bad that game was. But we will be back with more Nuggets content very, very soon. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll catch you very soon. I'm Liv Moods. That's BK signing off. Presented by Trusted American Mortgage, another Guerrilla Sports off-court post-game live reaction show. We'll see you guys very, very soon.